Hard Truth Distilling Company is celebrating a milestone with the release of its first bourbons produced grain to glass. Master distiller and co-founder Brian Smith said that the moment is particularly special because the first batch of sweet mash whiskey from our still many years ago was bourbon. We've always been a bourbon company. We've just been waiting for the right moment to introduce ours to the world. Well, it's here. Here they are, all three of them. Let's taste them. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and help me hit 100,000 subscribers for 2024. Now, like most new distilleries, while their bourbon was aging, Hard Truth was busy creating a line of successful craft spirits that included cinnamon vodka, toasted coconut rum, and maple bourbon cream. I tried that maple bourbon cream. It is stupid good. So naturally, building on the market demand from those spirits, 2021 saw the release of Hard Truth Sweet Mash Rye, the first grain-to-glass whiskey fully produced by Hard Truth. Now, their Sweet Mash Rye whiskey has been highly regarded as one of the best new rye whiskeys to enter the space, and it's become one of my personal favorites. Now today, their long-term lineup featuring Sweet Mash Rye and High Road Rye will now include 3 bourbons: Hard Truth Sweet Mash Bourbon, Wheated Bourbon, and 4-grain bourbon. The Sweet Mash Bourbon will be released at 90 proof, and both Wheated Bourbon and 4-grain bourbons have the requirements to be labeled bottled and bond. Another thing Hard Truth did was work closely with Andrew Weabrink, Director of Spirits Research at Independent Stave Company, to create custom toast and char profiles designed to complement the sweet mash coming off the still. Now, these custom Cooper Select barrels are built using 18 to 24 month dried staves, aged far beyond the typical 3 to 6 months that we normally see. All right, so here are the details. Hard Truth Sweet Mash Bourbons will be available for purchase at the distillery on Saturday, February 24th, and in select markets beginning Friday, March 1st. Now, suggested retail pricing for these are probably the best part. 750 milliliter bottles, the Sweet Mash Bourbon at 90 proof comes in at $44.99. The Wheated Bourbon Bottle and Bond at 100 proof is $54.99, while the 4-grain Bottled and Bond Bourbon is $59.99. So let's start with the 90 proof Sweet Mash Bourbon. So when I got these bottles, I posted it on my Instagram. A lot of people were messaging me about it, how it was. I hadn't tried the Bottled and Bonds yet, and I still haven't tried them, so we'll have a fresh crack at these in a little bit. But the 90 proof one is the one I have been sipping on, and it's already pretty impressive, but let's kind of take a deeper dive into it. Before I forget, the mash bill is 73 corn, 19% rye, and 8% malted barley. So it has a nice high rye mash bill. So here we go. You know, nothing surprising here. A lot of caramel, a lot of toffee, something that you would expect with a a younger bourbon. These are all around 5 years old, I believe. There's a little bit of a nuttiness quality here. There's also kind of a bright fruit note. I think it's more of a kind of a red apple type note. Not like that sour green apple. It's a little bit more of a red apple, I think. It's got a really nice nose for a younger bourbon. And what you kind of look for is some of those youthful notes. You get some like a grainy quality, and with this one, I'm not really getting any of that. Maybe a slight hint of it, but it actually smells pretty solid for a 5-year product. So let's try it. This is really sweet. Again, a lot of those notes you would expect from a good bourbon: toffee, caramel, some vanilla. But there's this very, very sneaky spice to it that just lingers on the back of the palate, kind of like a black pepper. This is a very rich bourbon for 90 proof. The first time I tasted it, I was very impressed with it, and it actually might have one of the longer finishes I've ever had on a 90 proof bourbon. If you've ever had a high age 90 proof bourbon, whether it be, I don't know, Weller 12, whether it be one of the Rhetorics, the 25-year, 24-year, that are just a lower proof, I think there's a different type of finish that you get on that. You get a lot of oak, maybe some sweet tobacco, maybe you get some layered flavors on the finish that kind of keep going. This is more of a lingering spice type of profile, where this black pepper note just kind of hangs on, and it kind of hangs on incredibly long for something that's only 90 proof. Yeah, I think as you sip this, the finish does kind of taper off a little bit, but you still get this little just punch of black pepper on the back end. This is really good. I would highly recommend this one if it gets to your state for $45 and 90 proof. It is super, Super impressive. All right, let's try the wheated bourbon, bottled and bond. All right, so here's the sweet mash wheated bottled and bond mash bill of 69% corn, 19% wheat, and 12% malted barley. Again, 100 proof. So let's dive in. This one I have not tasted yet, so we'll see what we get. Now, as you guys know, I'm not really a huge fan of wheated bourbons. I don't know, the nose is actually a little too light for me. I'm not really picking up a lot. Give it the old swirl job. So I get a little bit of that wheat funk note that I usually get in wheated bourbons. Very reminiscent of kind of like a Maker's Mark type aspect to it. Light vanilla. Yeah, as this opens up, it's starting to get a little bit darker. Kind of like a ginger, maybe like a hint of like a gingerbread cookie type thing. I don't know. It's pretty nice on the nose, but again, that wheat funk is something that just turns me off a little bit, but let's try it. Here we go. Yeah, this has a darker aspect to it, which is kind of interesting. You know, you expect kind of these brighter fruit flavors with the wheated bourbon, but what I'm tasting is more of, you know, kind of a darker profile, mostly kind of the oak that's involved in it. Maybe, again, a little bit of like a chocolate vibe. Need another sip. Yeah, you could definitely feel the 10 proof points higher here. It's got a little bit better viscosity here, but as this is opening up, it's getting better and better. That first sip, I was like, ugh, I'm not really too sure about this one. But it does have a longer, different type of finish than the 90 proof bourbon did, the sweet mash bourbon. Yeah, I'm really tasting the, like a toasted oak note. So whatever they did with those casks, this is what I'm picking up on here. So if you kind of like toasted bourbons or toasted ryes, where you get a little bit of like a marshmallowy type note, that toasted oak profile, I think it's all there. It kind of finishes off with a nice black pepper note. This one's good for a wheated bourbon, and generally I'm not a big wheated bourbon guy, but this is pretty solid. I think wheated bourbon fans will like this, especially if you like those toasted bourbon type notes. Don't think of this as, you know, being a really easy sipping wheated bourbon experience like you would think with, you know, a Weller or something like that. This actually has a little bit more bite and punch to it. All right, let's go to the 4 grain. I'm really interested in that one. So while this is opening up, I do get this question all the time. What's the difference between sweet mash and sour mash? I think a lot of people think that it says sweet mash on the bottle, that it automatically tastes sweeter. That's not exactly the case. Sour mash is the process where a proportion of fermented bourbon mash that has already been distilled is added into the next run of fresh, unfermented mash. Typically, it's called backset. Now, this is done to correct the pH levels in order to create the best environment possible for yeast and to buffer against some sort of bacterial contamination that you could get during the fermentation process. Now, a sweet mash, on the other hand, is simply a mash with no backset or other pH adjustments made. Sweet mash begins fermentation as nothing more than the yeast working away at a fresh batch of bourbon mash before it's distilled. Some people hear sweet mash, like I said, and think the bourbon is automatically sweeter, but it's actually a process that's more expensive to do. But if you do it right, you end up in the same company as Peerless and Wilderness Trail, who were both just, those 2 bourbons were loved when they first came out, and they were super impressed with how good they tasted for being so young when they use that sweet mash process. So if you do the sweet mash process right, it could really elevate your bourbon a little bit, especially at a younger age. But like I said, it's a more expensive process. All right, guys, last one, the 4 grain bottled and bond. Mash bill is 78% corn, 9% rye, 9% wheat, and 4% malted barley. So mostly corn here. The proof is 100 proof, being bottled and bond. Let's try this one. This one I've been excited to try. This one's been opening up a little bit here, so here we go. Oh, this one is buttery. This is buttery. Oh, this one already has me a hello. I'm digging this one. You guys know I love the butterscotch. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think I get a little bit of apple, pear here as well. I get like butter, apple, and like pastry. So a little bit kind of like an apple pie vibe here. All right, let's hope it tastes as good as it smells. Here we go. Wow, I get a lot of tobacco on this, like cigar, straight up cigar on this bourbon. It's very, yeah, to me this is very tobacco cigar heavy. Like you could, this reminds me a little bit of the Buzzard's Roost cigar rye. Wow. I still get a little bit of that apple, but man, this is, it's not smoky, but I feel like there's like a nice tobacco punch to it. Yeah, the more you sip this, I think the butterscotch is still there, but that first sip was very tobacco forward. I feel like you still get that on this one. This could be a really good cigar pairing bourbon. Now that I keep tasting these flavors. Great spice on it. This one actually might be the most potent with spice. Yeah, this is like fresh ground black pepper on the back end, just kind of lingering. This one definitely has the longest finish on it. All right, another sip here. Yeah, so again, it stays buttery. There's a little hint of apple there. Very tobacco forward. Again, cigar smokers will probably love this one. And then you have this really, really rich like black pepper spice on the back end. So 3 bourbons with 3 very, very different flavor profiles. All right, let's break down all 3 one more time. So first, let's start with the Bottled & Bond Wheated Bourbon. This one comes in at a price of $54.99, 100 proof. This one I think was my least favorite out of the group. Again, I think there's gonna be a lot of people that like this, but I was getting a lot of those toasted bourbon notes that I don't normally particularly like, especially it being a wheater. But I could see a lot of people liking this one, that the flavors get a little bit darker as it goes along. Maybe I just need a little bit of time for this thing to open up, because generally some of those whiskeys that are toasted or have those types of notes do get better over time. So we'll see how that one opens up. Next is the 4-grain. The 4-grain Bottled & Bond. This was my second favorite. I think, man, I love the flavors in this one. It's different, it's unique. This one is gonna be the most expensive at $59.99, but I still think it's probably a good buy just because of the different flavors you get in here. Again, I think tobacco enthusiasts and cigar lovers will absolutely love this bourbon. It's got a lot of those flavors, easily the best finish out of all of them. But I gotta say, the one that I'm most impressed with is the Sweet Mash Bourbon. Coming in at $44.99, it's gonna be 45 bucks. This thing is balanced, it's sweet, it's spicy, the price is right. I think this bottle has a chance to be a real hitter this year. I need to blind this against some other 90 proof bourbons that are cheaper, maybe a little bit more expensive, and see how it holds up. But yeah, for me, this Sweet Mash Bourbon is absolutely delicious and probably the most impressive out of all 3 for me personally. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video for all 3 brand new Hard Truth bourbons. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram. Let me know, based on my tasting notes, which one you will be seeking out. Are you going to be seeking out all 3? Like I said, all 3 are pretty distinctly different. So be curious to see which one ends up being your favorite. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. So cheers, and I'll see you next time right here on the Mash and Drum. I'm going to have the, which one's this? Yeah, the Sweet Mash Bourbon. Cheers.